Hello, I'm Wendy Rinaldi, author and founder of the Social Use of Language programme, or SULP for short. This film is a look back at research evidence over the years and includes my latest retrospective study. I've made the film for professionals and parents, in part because SULP is now recommended on many educational and healthcare plans. I think this film will give you a sense of why it's recommended and also enable you to see the scope of the programme, because SULP has helped many children and young people with special educational needs, and also children who don't have special educational needs but who can benefit from a programme including social understanding and well-being. I wrote the very first edition of SULP back in 1989. This is a photo of me working on the final draft back in the day of the typewriter and handy bottle of Tipp-Ex by my side. We just moved house and I was up against a publication deadline, hence the mess. Over the years, I have extended and updated SULP considerably with electronic and animated material, but the principles underpinning the programme that make it effective haven't changed, and I have included what I believe are the key principles for effectiveness on this slide. I'll talk about these in a little more detail at the end of the film. SULP is a very extensive programme, developing social communication alongside social understanding, self-other awareness, social behaviour and emotional well-being, so it covers a lot of ground. And there are versions for preschool, primary, secondary school and adult students. I have summarised all the skills covered in each area on this slide. I've made sure to keep it up to date, but the good thing about something being around for so long is that it has been tried and tested by many. I had already researched and evaluated my work in the areas of social communication and well-being for a number of years before writing that first edition of SULP. My first article was published in the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapy Bulletin magazine in 1986. And between this and publication, I originated and developed many more activities. During the development phase, I was inspired by the progress I saw in my students and their comments. I've included some on this and the next few frames. It was this that led me to put forward the manuscript for publication. Since the publication of the first edition in 1991, many professionals have evaluated SULP, some informally as part of their practice and others as formal research study. We'll take a look at some of the more formal research findings in a moment, but I've included some comments from evaluation reports on this and the next few frames. There has additionally been anecdotal evidence from school inspection reports. One of the most comprehensive studies has been by Owens et al. They found that children aged 6 to 11 with autism who received the Social Use of Language programme in 18 weekly sessions improved in the areas of communication and socialisation, and the improvements were found to be statistically significant. A study with reception-aged children, published by Mitchell as a dissertation at the Newman University, found progress after 7 weeks, with sessions occurring twice a week. The sections of the programme covered in this time were eye contact, listening and memory strategies for following instructions. Progress was gradual over the 7-week period. There was observation at the start, point 1, midway, point 2, and at the end, point 3. On this frame, I've included findings at the start and end points of the research period. A study by Stockley with teenagers who have visual impairments found that all students except one gained in confidence in social situations. And these were some of the students' comments quoted by Stockley in her research paper. SULP has also been evaluated with adults who have learning difficulties. Recently, I've produced a version that can be used with adults who have autism spectrum conditions or developmental language disorder, sometimes alongside mental health concerns. I have used this as part of family therapy, and I've included a few of the evaluation comments on this and the next couple of frames. During the pandemic lockdowns, I took the opportunity to look out some of my pre and post therapy videos, and I analysed the data on 4 children with developmental language disorder who were 10 or 11 at the start of therapy. I worked with them for about 15 months, and we completed most of the programme. I filmed a communication sample where the children were asked open questions about a story, like who was your favourite character and why did you like him. I analysed the samples for conversational difficulties, counting the number of interruptions mid-sentence, the amount of simultaneous talk with no repair, and the number of times the children spoke when someone else was asked a question. I've included the findings in the table on this frame, and the children made statistically significant improvements between the pre-intervention and post-intervention samples. I also noted differences in self-other awareness that I have summarised on this and the next couple of slides. Firstly, the children had much more to say for themselves. For example, they were able to say much more about their thoughts about the characters. In the post-intervention sample, there were occasions where the children showed greater awareness of their communication and were able to self-regulate. For example, child A was able to adjust rate of speaking when I said pardon, and child B looked embarrassed when he interrupted me and immediately stopped to repair the conversation. I also noted a few times in the post-intervention sample when the children referred back to what each other had said. For example, it's like what Anna said. In the post-intervention recording, all 4 children reflected on themselves or what they'd learned about friendship when considering their favourite or least liked characters. Whereas in the pre-intervention recording, they referred to physical or descriptive attributes of the characters. So why does it work? I've included what I believe are the key principles for effectiveness on the next frames. SULP takes a metacognitive approach, and a central concept of metacognition is comprehension before use. Children and young people are first helped to focus and stay focused at the start of each session and partway through if needed. And then there are a series of activities enabling them to understand about a skill and how it can help them before they practice using it in graded activities, starting with fun group games. There is a build to skills. For example, listening is important for conversational turns because you need to listen to your conversation partner so that you can time your turns without interrupting, and you need to listen to yourself to know when you've said enough and it's time to hand over. So in the programme, you help children develop their listening skills before working on conversation skills. This means that each time you move on to a new skill, you're just adding a little more, and learning is very manageable as well as reinforcing. Learning is explicit. Long-term goals are shared at the start in an activity called the big picture. It's a little like showing the picture on a jigsaw box, and if you think of the jigsaw pieces as individual skills, these are put together one by one, and learning links are spelt out each time you introduce a new skill with a catchphrase like "speak a bit, listen a bit" is the catchphrase for conversational turns. Staff or family take part with the students, whether they be children, teenagers or adults, so it feels like a team. We're all in this together. Staff models give confidence and build rapport, and working in groups takes the pressure off individual students. This is important for learning and well-being. They have a chance to sit back, watch and learn from staff and each other. Within the SULP framework, at each stage of the activity sequence, the teacher or therapist encourages the students to think for themselves and develop a motivation to use skills. This starts at the comprehension stage with the talking or thinking points after each story or model. At the practice stage, all the game activities are underpinned by a principle I call purpose and desire. In other words, the games are developed to be motivating, i.e. create desire, but only work if the students use the skill, and that gives a purpose. In the conversation activities, the students decide for themselves how much they will use a skill, and this may be limited initially. For example, students who have sensitivities with eye contact may only manage momentary glances in the early stages. The staff guide and encourage the students through this process and additionally encourage them to give supportive feedback to each other as part of the activity. I find this adds to the students' motivation. At the carryover stage, the students are encouraged to think of times when they can use the skill outside of the SULP group and work out their own plan of actions with support from staff and using the visuals provided on the picture files. Activities are multisensory. Visuals are particularly important. Learning is so much more effective if students can see things for themselves, and it has the added bonus of avoiding arguments that can arise with students who have a black and white thinking style or who aren't good at seeing likely outcomes of something they may want to do. They can be absolutely adamant until they see the possibilities for themselves and can then shift their thinking as needed. Much of SULP is about giving choices for students to try and see what they feel comfortable with. If you would like a summary of research evidence, please email inquiries@wendyrinaldi.com. The summary includes references that you can follow up if you'd like to. Please also get in touch if you have any questions or if you'd like more information about the Social Use of Language programme. Bye for now.